Hey guys, Fourth Camel ADV. We're going to do the install video tonight for our Gen 2 gut guard for the KTM 890. Very similar to the one that we did for the 790 in 2020, I think it came out. A few little upgrades here and there. And then on the 23 890, KTM changed their factory skid plate. The side lobes used to be separate from the main plate. So you could beef up the main plate but keep the same plastic side lobes. That is not the situation on the 23 and up. So we had to make some heavy duty lobe protectors, which we've done. They're available separately. You can get the skid plate on its own if you have one of the earlier model 790, 890s or the Norden 901 or the new 790. And if you want to upgrade your older 790 or 890, you can with the lobes. The new lobes do not fit the 901. I'm going to do a whole video about the new features and things on the skid plate and the lobes, but I want to keep that separate from this install video, so we're just going to go right to the install. So your kit includes the main skid plate body, which is very similar to the one on the previous generation. We just added some extra bits in here to better protect the rear mounting bracket and add a lot of rigidity to it. We have the broken edges all the way along, so the bending resistance is much better than it was on the previous version, and we have better protection for the side stand safety switch. The front panel remains unchanged. This is the rear mounting bracket. We've got a secondary sleeve here. So this is on the right side of the bike. We've noticed that the foot peg mounting locations where the center stand mounts is where this rear bracket mounts, but that distance can change a bit from bike to bike, up to about 5 millimeters. So we've got the sleeve in here that you loosen these set screws, and this sleeve will float back and forth so that you don't have to mess around with the width on the foot pegs, loosening things to get things lined up properly. So that'll help you with the install. And then we have our big beefy lobe protectors. These are 3/16 aluminum, same as the main skid plate, super beefy. They'll protect your fuel tank in the event of a crash. Obviously, in order to put the new skid plate on, we have to take the old one off. But we've got the 4 bolts here. And then underneath, we have 2 bolts here. We're also going to take these 3 out, but we'll do that on the bench. Doesn't really matter the order you do this in, but we're going to start at the bottom here. Then we're going to grab these 4. Take these 3 bolts out of each side. If you take one side off, you can get enough room to wiggle the skid plate out with the other side still attached. And just pull down on that, and we can set this aside. And then we're going to take these 3 bolts out here, which hold this rubber bumper pad on here. We're going to reuse this on the new skid plate. So these are Euro heads. You can either use an 8mm socket or 30 Torx. And then we can set the skid plate aside. So you're going to come to your fastener pack. There are 2 different lengths of M6 bolts here. This is a 20, this is a 16. So you're going to grab 3 6x16s, the shorter of the 2. And they're going to attach this bracket onto the new skid plate. So I'm going to put blue Loctite on the nuts here on this bracket, or you can put it on the bolt, whichever. You know, 4mm Allen, tighten these guys up. Then we're going to attach the front section to the lower, and that's where we're going to use the M6x20 bolts. Again, we're going to put Loctite on these. This is one of the other changes we made on the plate. It used to be we had a hole here and you had to hold a nut on the back side to get the bolt through. to hold the OEM lug on, and now we're using speed nuts, so this is a lot easier. So just snap this guy in. And you may have to give these guys a little bit of a tap down to get them seated properly. So we're going to take our rear mounting bracket, and there's 3 M8x16 bolts. Loctite on all 3 of these. Put the bracket on the skid plate, and then the bolts up from the bottom. And then you can tighten these fully. Then we're ready to put the skid plate on the bike. So we're going to take a T47 Torx, and we're going to take this bolt out in the spacer. And you can set this aside. We're going to reuse the bolt, but not the spacer. And we're going to go around to the other side and do the same thing. So with that done, we're going to come to your fastener pack here. There are M6x20 Euro heads, and there are M6x16 Euro heads. We're going to take the 16s. There's 4 of them. We're going to put a dab of blue Loctite on each one of them. I'm going to take the bolt and get this started in the upper mounting bracket here. We're just going to go a couple threads in on the lowers. So this is where the adjustable width on this rear mounting bracket comes into play. So some of the bikes over the years, these mounting brackets have been flared out a little bit, and it makes it a bit of a challenge to get it installed. So we added this part here. Just take your 3mm Allen, loosen those up so this floats back and forth. So you're going to slide it up on the left-hand side because that one is solid. And then this one on the right-hand side, you just leave it loose. And the width kind of is what it is. But everything fit in there nicely. And we're going to grab our bolts and get those slid in. So you will notice right now that the bracket is ahead of the hole in the mount here. That's fine because we haven't tightened this up. As we tighten this up, it's going to slide the whole skid plate back a little bit. So if you tighten those up and you come down here and that hole still isn't aligned, you can take a mallet and just give this a smack. This upper bracket is quite flexible. So you can see that that hole is lined up now. If these mounting holes are way out, you may have to loosen the bolts here. There's one in the back here behind the brake pedal, and potentially the one on the swing arm at the top here. These actually rotate quite a bit. If you've dropped your bike, there's a good chance that this is rolled backwards. So you might need to loosen these bolts and get it tweaked back where it's supposed to be. Once you get the bolts through our rear mounting bracket, you can tighten all of that back up. A little bit of blue Loctite on this bolt. So with everything lined up, you can come and tighten these. And then you're good. You're never going to have to mess with this width again. When you take the skid plate off for oil change or something like that, you're going to leave this bracket attached and just take the 3 bolts out from the bottom. So if you've got a pre-23 790 or 890 or a 901, you can put your factory plastic tank lobe protectors back on. Or if you have upgraded to our aluminum versions, I'll show you how to install those. So you can take your appropriate side lobe. So you're going to take 2 of the M6x20 bolts, dab of Loctite, We've got 2 threaded inserts on the front mounting bracket. And we're going to take the bolts through the holes in the front of the lobe protector and then into the inserts on the main plate. And we'll just get those started loosely. So we're going to come down to the bottom. This is the speed nut that we put on earlier. It is a ways ahead of where we need it right now. So we need to push that speed nut towards the front of the bike so it's going to line up properly with this. You can take a small drift or a flat blade screwdriver, and we just need to slide this guy towards the front. And they are a tight fit. So we're just looking for these 2 holes to line up, which they do. And then we're going to take one of the remaining M6x16 bolts. So we're going to get this one started. We're not going to tighten it all the way up. We're going to come back to the front and we're going to tighten these all the way. When you're doing the initial install, it's important to go back and forth on these just to make sure that everything is seated properly. Once that speed nut is set in location, when you take the tank lobes off and on, you don't need to mess with it. It's just getting it in the right spot to begin with. And then we can tighten this all the way down. So again, blue Loctite. So this insert needs to move back just a hair. So just loosening those upper bolts so that we have good access here. So all we're doing, I'm just putting the drift here on the insert and just giving it a tap to slide it over. We've got to move it about a 1/16, maybe an 1/8 of an inch. And we're going to take our M6x16 and we're going to thread it into the speed nuts. That wraps up the install video for the Gen 2 gut guard with tank lobes for the KTM 790/890. If you have any questions, as always, info@camel-adv. Thanks for watching.